All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, GM from Austin, Texas, here at the Consensus Conference at CoinDesk. For everybody watching at home, I have a little confession to make. Our original moderator missed his flight, and I got a text message at 1 a.m. asking if I could moderate this amazing panel. And when I found out who the speakers were, I said 100% absolutely, I will cut my party short, get home so I can sleep so we can actually collaborate on this one. And today's topic is going to be about NFTs to IRL, and we have an amazing panel here. I'd love to get you guys to introduce yourselves a little bit, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ariel, ladies first as always. So.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here today. It's really fun to be here with all of you. My name's Ariel Wengroff. I run all communications, marketing, and education for Ledger, which is the world's most secure way to interact with Web3 and to secure your digital assets in crypto. We've been around since 2014. We're quite winter-proof and battle-tested, and we've been spending a lot more time recently engaging with communities and activating in that way. So it'll be fun to talk about this today.
All right. Thanks, Ariel. Let's go with Kevin.
Hi, my name's Kevin Wright. I work at Adidas right now as a manager of global brand communications. So that makes me perhaps the least technically inclined person here. But it's fun. As I was explaining to them when I'm at the company, I'm rather a techie person. But my experience comes from the music industry and then now in fashion. So I'm an expert in bringing ideas to life and creating value, which is much of what we exist to do here, right? So when we talk communities, culture, bringing ideas to life and how to communicate across the world, that's my job. Again, global communication, so we talked about hyper-local activations. It really is all across the globe. So becoming a culture expert and learning how to navigate those is where I sit.
All right, and last but not least, Kevin. Or Seth. Seth, sorry. Good morning.
How are you?
Seth.
I'm Seth Goldstein. I'm the founder of Bright Moments. We are a IRL gallery, NFT gallery, DAO. We started in Venice Beach about a year ago, where we minted our first set of crypto Venetians, and we're going around the world in 10,000 NFTs. In every city we go to, we mint another 1,000 on-chain generative art NFTs called Crypto Citizens. And everybody that mints with us IRL joins the DAO, and then the DAO votes on where we go next in every city we go to. And we've gone to New York, Berlin, we're doing London in July, and we just voted as a DAO that the next city will be Mexico City in November.
That's really awesome. And as you guys can see here, a common denominator is storytelling around our panel here. And you know, the promise of NFTs around PFPs, 101 collectibles, have been really a big surge. And I know recently in NFT Twitter, we've been seeing a lot of questions around utility, right? And storytelling is incredibly important around the utility, the concepts, and the relationship that you have with your brands. So Ariel, as you know, storytelling and content is at your heart. And will storytelling continue to be important to making NFTs and to IRL connection?
I mean, so he's saying storytelling is at my heart because my background is actually in production. I was at Vice for a very long time and created a ton of content there. And I'm always thinking, what is the best way to reach people with the least amount of red tape? Which naturally, when you think about what's going on with Web3 and in the NFT space, it's an incredible opportunity to break through barriers that are really intergenerational if you're educated. And from a storytelling perspective, for us, you know, Ledger we're a hardware device, right? We have our own operating system, but we're kind of equivalent to the Apple iPhone in some ways, right? When you pick up your phone, you don't think, oh, I'm excited to pick up this really sophisticated hardware device. You're like, oh, I'm really excited to talk to my friends. I'm excited to play that game. I'm excited to enter my world. And so for us, storytelling and creating cultural authority actually helps us build product authority so that when you actually have your device, and when you actually have something that's like your ledger and it's customized, like what we did with the hundreds, and we're really proud to partner with Bright Moments as well in their space, then it gives you a vehicle to enter from. And in a lot of ways, because Web3 is just providing value and affirmation to your digital time and existence, what we do is actually help make that like URL IRL and provide that storytelling and that value around it. So it's just that the storytelling comes from the individual, and it's the way that you show up and show your identity versus a top-down experience where a brand or a product is trying to tell you how to live your life. We just help you live your life in Web3.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I love that concept of just living your life in Web3. And speaking of living your life, Seth, I love the way that you bring these IRL experiences in multi-cities and the concept of minting in real life, like in person. What are you hearing from your community and the desires that they have, and like where do they want to take this next?
We should probably, the panel I think for us should be called like from IRL to NFT. And what's making me really happy right now is like all these NFTs that you're literally seeing on the screen are NFTs that we've minted IRL in our galleries. So that's a 100 print over there that was done in New York. That's Reflection by Jeff Davis. 100 print here, Tyler Hobbs, Incomplete Control. There's some Parnassuses from Berlin. There's Crypto Berliners back there. And every single one of these NFTs literally tells a story of like where we were, what city we were in, who minted it. In the case of the Crypto Citizens, like that one on the beach in Venice, like that's number 540. I think that's, not 540, but that's, I think, one of mine. And like, it brings me back to like where I was at a certain point in time. So when you think about what does the community want, like the community wants more of that. The community wants NFTs that are meaningful, that we can emotionally attach to, that we're not just minting behind our screen and minting 7 and flipping 4 and trying to be up on our money. And that when you tie this kind of like Rituals was done in Venice over a 50-hour marathon from Friday to Sunday, from sunset to sunset, 50 hours in a row. Every person had 15 minutes to mint Rituals. Some people minted at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? And so I think you talked about stories, you talked about community. I think what we're about is making that minting experience truly memorable, so that you hold on to these NFTs, not because you're just speculating, but because they mean something to you emotionally.
Thank you, Seth. I love that emotional connection, and I think there's a topic that I'd like to touch on that brings that, which is identity. But before doing that, I'd like to speak to Kevin, because like Kevin, you guys rocked it last year when you guys partnered with the Bored Ape, G Money, and everybody else like that, and it was really well done. Even with the glitches that you guys had and everything, you guys handled it really, really well. How has the journey of Adidas, a global brand, corporate brand, how has that journey been from going from IRL to NFTs and now NFTs to IRL? Walk us through that process.
You know, it's been an interesting journey, and again, as gatekeepers, I think the first step for us there, as you mentioned, right, working with BC, working with Punk's Comic and G Money as our guides, something that we understand as a brand and we've always understood, whether it's athletes, influencers, creators, right, or whichever space we're in, is how to work with the culture, right, and how to build with the culture and alongside. The origin story of Adidas is all the way back to the Olympics with Jesse Owens, right? Where we worked with him to set the Olympics on fire, right? And change culture. We've kept that as a core component to our strategy across everything that we do. So when we saw this coming, and again, you know, Nike's in crypto kicks in 2019, and we see the writing on the wall, and we say, how do we effectively approach this space? So it starts one with where in the brand does it live? Like you said, this giant multinational corporate 70-year-old brand, which is very old for most companies nowadays. There's a lot to navigate. So it started really with figuring out where does that live here and who's the best team to tackle that? And for us, it ended up falling to the culture space, right? So Adidas Originals, where we really drive culture. We're a sport brand, and if you work there, you know we're a sport brand. But if you don't work there, a lot of people, they're like, yeah, fashion brand, great, yeah, we love the trefoil, right? So we really felt like that was the space there, and our very first step, as it is, whether we're in volleyball, like baseball, football, or creative space, is to go and find those gatekeepers. So really, that's one of the benefits of our brand. I talk about this all the time, And I used to as well. I come from, before Adidas, Warner Brothers. And I used to joke all the time when we're trying to scout artists and get someone to pick up the phone, they always pick up the phone. Even if you're not the very biggest in the room, even if you don't have the most money, they'll always pick up the phone because everyone knows Adidas, right? I used to say that Warner Brothers, everyone watched the Animaniacs, they're gonna pick up the phone. So that's the benefit you have, right? That's what you get when you've got 70 years of history and you've been in so many moments across the globe. When you pick up the phone for a G-Money or a Bay C, they answer and they say, let's get involved, right? So there's the two different routes to go. We always start with gatekeepers, and that felt like the only way to come in here. And as you all know, there are so many hurdles and specifics, right? So we're able to bring our knowledge of cultures and our ability to maintain our status as a gatekeeper to some other gatekeepers and merge the two. And that's where we get to the NFT to IRL, right? Gatekeepers in one space, gatekeepers in another. Let's create culture together.
Oh, that's a really excellent point. And speaking of like that gatekeeper relationship where people call, Ariel, I'd love to talk about the storytelling concept around the luxury market, right? I think you guys have been at the forefront with the Fendi partnership. What does the world of ultra high net worth luxury consumer look like for you guys, and in terms of like, and how do you feel that NFTs are going to play a role in that relationship with that level of consumer?
I think it's important to say that our Ledger kind of strategy as a brand isn't just to be for luxury, but we definitely feel like if you start with LVMH or you start with the top, it makes it a lot easier to have choices than if you start at something that feels a little bit less premier and then you want to go up, right? You want to have most optionality. And it's also very clear that if you see someone wearing a Ledger or you see someone with a Ledger, you probably know that they're pretty educated in the space. And it's interestingly recently become a little bit of like a, oh shit, they have a Ledger. Like, okay, cool, they get it, right? And it's funny because it's a little bit unexpected, but for us, it's incredibly important to understand that value. And with luxury, when we approached the Fendi relationship, which I actually was going to wear it today, but they made a Fendi accessory case for the Nano that you can put it in. And you can attach it to a bag, and it's actually going to go for sale later this month. But we've been working with all of these different partners because that's a totally different community than the community that was expected for Ledger. Ledger was expected for young men interested in crypto. And so when I joined and when Ian Rogers joined, who's the chief experience officer, we said, no, crypto's actually for everyone. That's like saying, who's the internet for? And how do we create different opportunities for various communities to feel like they can identify with and participate in the space? And so establishing those luxury partnerships helps us have a very broad audience and a lot of reckoning. And then that lets us build on top of that. And the momentum from January when we announced that to now is just wildly significant and different. And to your question about the NFT component, a lot of these luxury brands, and to your point about 70 years of history, they have to figure out, like, where do I jump in? Like, what makes sense, what's smart, where am I not going to make a mistake because they have more judgment? And so we actually recommend, like, play the long game. Like, you know, it's okay if your first NFT is actually just a proof of purchase. Because truthfully, luxury is actually about withstanding the test of time. It's about understanding who had it beforehand, what makes this something of premier quality, why should I want to show this symbol or this brand affiliation because it makes me feel a certain way. And for us with Ledger, we want to make sure that the way that you feel when you see the device or you see the logo is something that truly will have your back and let you live the way that you want. And if those types of luxury affiliations help us get there, then it's a huge part of the relationship. But it's been quite interesting because Fendi jumped in before I think anyone else did. And now the establishment we've seen, and to these points with Adidas and actually some of the work we've seen with Gucci, more are coming in, but it's quite unclear what that might look like in 24 months. And so we're working for very long-term established relationships for things that, you know, I think the only other thing you could probably put in the Fendi case is a lipstick, which we've been talking to Huda Kattan actually about doing together. But it's a fun time to kind of begin.
I love that concept of going from the top and then you can go down from it. And to that extent of engaging your community and engaging concepts and brands, Seth, I'd love to speak to you because running a DAO digitally is a pain in the ass, let alone bring in an IRL component. How have you been able to manage that, and like, what are some of the best practices that you've seen in making sure that the connection between the digital and the physical kind of stay cohesively and don't break down?
So yeah, we set up, we did two things when we started. We set up an NFT gallery by putting screens on the walls and showing NFTs, and then we also organized as a DAO. And I think, I don't know if there's many that have done both. And I think what it's allowed us to really specialize in is building this IRL community as we go. And anybody that has minted a crypto Venetian or a crypto New Yorker or a crypto Berliner or a crypto Londoner in July, or by definition, you become part of the DAO. You don't have to apply. It is permissionless. If you don't want to be part of the DAO, sell your NFT on OpenSea. If you weren't there to mint with us and you want to join the DAO, like in the next 5 minutes, go to OpenSea and buy a crypto citizen, and you're in the DAO. And if you're in the DAO, it means you have one of what will ultimately be 10,000 votes on on the treasury, on all voting proposals. And there are certain benefits of being in the DAO, such as airdrops, right? And so when we did Tyler Hobbs' show Incomplete Control in December. It was his first show after he dropped Fidenza on Art Blocks. And there were 100 mint passes available. Up until the actual show, the mint passes were going for 80 or 90 ETH. But our community at the time of 2,000 or so crypto citizens were airdropped, I think, 23 mint passes that just showed up in their wallet by virtue of holding a crypto citizen. And so there were 23 people in our community who had an opportunity to mint for 15 ETH, something that was available or they could sell for 80 or 90 ETH. And ETH was not at $1,700, it was at $3,500 or whatever. So that was like $250,000 or $300,000 that you got by virtue of being in this community. It went to some people, and it was all on-chain randomly through Chainlink. Paul Pierce got one because he had minted a Venetian. Andy Milanakis got one. But also the guy, Zeus, that owned the Arepa stand next to the original gallery in Venice got one. And the woman who worked at the vintage clothing store got one. Zeus ended up selling it, and he was able to buy a new kitchen for his Arepa stand. The woman at the vintage store minted her Tyler Hobbs, and now that's part of her collection. So it's a really powerful community that we're building. It's all about using the ETH to generate more art, not using the art to generate more ETH. And that's the road that we're on.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And talking about that topic of like generating ETH for more art, not more art for ETH. I love that topic, and I think I want to open it up to speak about identity and in the space, right? Because I think so much of our purchasing power, right, or our decision making comes down to signaling to the world what it is, right? Like last year, the real flex at NFT NYC wasn't you wearing a Rolex, it was wearing an iWatch with your CryptoPunk, right? Or your Bored Ape and things of that capacity. And so when you think about the role of Adidas in identity, right? Everybody, when you showcase you're in Adidas or you have your Yeezys, whatever, you're signaling to the world what brand you have. When you think about your NFT strategy and the role that identity plays with your consumer, what is that thought process like? And then the follow-up question to that is that, does every NFT need merchandise, like an actual IRL merchandise?
Great question. I think, man, I could speak about identity forever, and that's something that gets so exciting when we're here, right? And we talk about this a lot, surprisingly, like as employees. You know, we wear the brand. You won't see me wearing Nikes. I love Nike, but you won't see me wearing them. It's part of my identity. Adidas is part of who I am, at least for now, right? This is something that's pretty rare. It's, you know, you think employees of a brand, but then really you get to the fun stuff like athletes and people that have been endorsed, right? You think of those that are out there that represent and define what that identity is. If I want to be like Kanye, I wear Yeezys, and that's my signal to the Yeezy community, right? So what's so exciting here in this space is we have the opportunity to start to bring others, outsiders, fans, and people that really care about the brand inside to where it becomes a part of their identity. And it's not the same as owning stock, which we know it's obviously popular. And I'm very obsessed with like the idea of vanity stocks, like people that purchase very small amounts. What Cash App is doing is so interesting to me, where people are buying like, I've got $5 of Adidas because I couldn't get this new shoe I like, but I really believe in the brand, or I've got $20 of Manchester United, which is a thing one of my friends did. But it doesn't come with that identity. You don't feel like you have to own it and you can't share it. There's no utility that comes from there. You literally have to tell someone like, I own some of Man United. This opens up entirely new doors for us to broaden up that community and start to share that identity. I imagine a future or a time now, right, where there are owners and holders of our NFTs that are from our Into the Metaverse community that also when I see them getting ready, for their day and they go, here's my Nikes, here's my Pumas, here's my Adidas. This is part of who I am. I want to signal to the outside world, I'm invested in this and I'm growing with it. So that's some of the most exciting opportunities here is to share some of that feeling that we have where we become proud and connected to these moments and what we do. The follow-up to that, certainly not. I do not believe that every merchandise item needs an NFT, but it's really exciting where we can get to some. I think it will come up later in our conversation, but and if you look at our token standard, you can see that this is part of our strategy where really there's so much more value that can be added in the IRL, right? So we talk so much about fungible things. I've got this new skin in this new game. What if I want the skin that Ninja owned before? It doesn't make me better. It doesn't make me faster or stronger, but I can prove that Ninja had it. That's the space that we're in, right? So the ability to, with this token standard, to go into and out of. And
I actually have a question on that. Does provenance make something more expensive? For example, like if I have, let's say I have the Adidas. I'm a full disclosure, I have about 5 of your NFTs, right? And thank you for the airdrop last week, so I appreciate that. From that point, now as a collector, right, a lot of people have started, for example, with G Money. I'll give an example, shout out to G Money. When he sells something, it could be the same NFT, but someone may buy it because of G Money. Is that something that we're going to start seeing played out? And I'd love to open this up to the whole panel. Is that something we're going to start seeing play out in real life?
I'll go quickly and pass it on, but that's exactly where I see. And when we look at collectibles, right now I think Pokemon cards, and that's awesome. There's utility there. But when we look at the collectibles market, when we look at art and where we're coming from, there's extreme value based on who's owned it, who's touched it, and where it's come from. And that value comes from the IRL. And that's, again, where we're truly creating value. Where can we add, how can you create a new price point for something without adding any money? Well, we can create value in real life.
Seth,
just to build on that, Kevin, like this idea of time, right? You add time to the equation, and there's no one ape holder. And the ape holder that minted an ape is different than the ape holder that bought it at 2, and different than the one that bought it at 100, right? And so because we have access to the blockchain and because all these NFTs are on-chain, there are influencers and there are people that you will gravitate towards because they're early and they understand the alpha before it has spread. And I think that you never had that with traditional brands, right? If I had a certain bag or I had a luxury watch, you didn't have that same dynamic as knowing, okay, this person minted an MFer. It says something. It says they were around the basket when the rebound came, right? And I think it opens up the opportunity to see people for where, not just what they're holding in this culture, but for where they were in adoption.
But I think to that point, like one of the biggest mistakes I think brands have made or in culture that we've made is when this still existed and you checked out a book at the library, there wasn't a single person that didn't look at the library card.
Ooh, I used to
always
love
wanted
that.
to know what was
my
at the
God.
library card, and I think with brands, especially like the ones on the stage, you want to know like who checked the box first. Yep. It's a huge lead-in for why you should care, but also the way that you think about what you care and your affiliation and the building blocks of that. And I think Web3 is such an exciting way because also that also can mean what an influence means to you can be so different. And so it really lets us change the indicators and mix up some of that, because then to that point earlier, it's not always top down, which is so important in the way that we continue to build the space. But yeah, I mean, that's why so many luxury brands now are getting into reselling. And it's like, well, the whole NFT, the whole secondary space is about the proliferation of reselling. Like, that is actually the strength of the market. It's not about hodling or taking something for too long. And so it's an interesting moment that we're in right now for that.
That's a really fascinating concept of the resale aspect and like that engagement concept. And I think when something that the blockchain does really well, and like something, my dear friend Amanda Gutterman, our Cassette from Serotonin, we were having a conversation around what the blockchain does for actually interaction with the real world. And she coined this term reverse CRM, right? Where you can actually, you don't have to know your consumer, but you can know what the consumer holds, and you can create that identity. How are you guys thinking about engaging the blockchain to engage in the real world? And what does that look like in theory, and what does it look like in practice?
I mean, for us, it's really interesting because we've actually seen that communities that have higher value in ETH, for NFTs specifically, tend to have higher percentage where they're secured by Ledger, because they're more educated and therefore they understand that they have a higher risk of human error, which is natural. We get excited, we do things, you click on a link, the space is wild. You want to take like every step you can to protect yourself. And so we find that blockchain transactions are an indicator of different communities we can participate in. Or we know that there's a 70% overlap between luxury sneaker consumers and crypto holders. And so it's a very important flex for some of these like sneaker companies to show that they understand crypto, so they might want to do like a custom ledger with us, right? We use blockchain trends as ways for us to understand market share and where we should be putting our focus as a brand, because if we're able to maintain or slightly grow with those market shares, then we know we're growing exponentially because the space is so early. And I think that not enough people actually track it. Like, I think you'll see a lot of social apps come out where you can affiliate based on what's going on the blockchain, and it's very hard right now to identify with that. And I think that Coinbase was probably trying to do that a bit with their NFT platform, and obviously that's had, you know, various levels of success so far in beta, but I think more and more of that will come, like the blockchain flex, because it's the truth holder, right? Like, you can't lie, you can't filter the blockchain. And so you own what you own, you have what you have, and you have to live by that. And that'll be a fun way to see that going forward.
I love that concept of the blockchain doesn't lie, right? It's like, hey, I've been in the real world in IRL. If you have, for example, if I have a piece or an art piece or something along those lines, no one knows how long I've had it. Oh yeah, I've had that for a long time. Oh yeah, I've been in it since day one. Now the blockchain, you're like, show me the receipt. Right? That's it. That's really awesome. But we have 2 more minutes to come through, and I just wanted to open it up to the audience for any questions, concerns, ideas, comments, you know, feedback, anything? Great.
Sorry, it's also projecting past this mask.
Yeah. No, we appreciate it.
But I really appreciated what you said about Ledger's POV on crypto being for everyone. That said, respectfully, you know, I don't think that right now the market is particularly approachable for people who don't necessarily make 6 figures plus a year. So when do you kind of see that changing? And what advice do you have for people who are interested in crypto and NFTs but can't afford to spend, for example, even 1 or 2 ETH on a piece?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I think that's a great question. And the truth is, you know, we come from a conversation and a regular everyday where we can throw around numbers and names that feel regular, but it's actually not normal, right? Like, it's like when sometimes you see ETH value in USD or something, or fiat, you're like, wait, what? I did that? And that's actually why education is so important to Ledger. Like, we've launched our academy. When we work with partners, it's always education and security first, and that's minded towards creating very approachable language and representatives that will help make people feel like they should have the choice. And that's how I feel. Every person should have the choice to participate, and it's on every single person to uphold that. Because if you're just serving the people that you know that can spend more, that's where you have more of a challenge. But I think it's going to take time, and I recommend that people do Tezos or use different platforms where it's cheaper to get into the space. You could get something amazing for $5, and that's awesome, right? So we should celebrate that as well. We just talk mainly about certain platforms, so that's on us.
To your point on that front, like, I think Tezos is about to have its moment.
Yeah, me too.
And, yeah, Tezos is like brewing really, really cool. Like generative art on Tezos
FX
is really
hash.
great. Right, FX hash. I was the last 48 hours. I probably spent an ungodly amount of time on there, and it's just like.
Yeah, but it's cool.
It's cool, and the thing to your point, it's like to your point of accessibility. I think we do need to have a responsibility of educating, of onboarding, and this is what we are our top priority at NFT Now is to create these types of guides, to get these types of contests, and demystifying the world of NFTs. Go ahead, Seth.
It's more than charity, right? If your community, if your holders are just whales and degens flipping from one community to the other, it's not going to be sustainable. You need to have like a diverse and heterogeneous set of holders. So every city we go to, and it started in Venice when we gave all of our crypto Venetians away, just first come, first serve. Every city we go to, we did it in New York, we did it in Berlin, we're doing it in London. Of the 1,000 crypto citizens that we mint in that city, a third are given away locally to the community for free, ideally to people who are crypto curious but aren't on Discord and aren't in NFT Twitter, but they want to learn. And so it's our job to give well and onboard people, and we work with Ledger because hardware wallets are absolutely essential. We work with Coinbase, we work with Samsung, we work with Artblocks to onboard people who may be curious but just haven't gotten over the hump in terms of just anxiety or financial stress or whatever. A third of the 1,000 also get airdropped to existing holders, and a third we sell to pay for the project.
Got it. And go ahead, Kevin, to wrap it up.
I think that's a fantastic question. It's something I'm so interested in, maybe not concerned with, but excited about. And I think it's really important. We talk so much in our space about communities. We love communities. We don't talk enough about cultures, right? So I think Adidas, our first step is to step in and understand the culture of this space. But when we want to start to build for others and start to bring others in, that's when we use the space to engage other cultures. So, for instance, we're not building, soccer, the culture of soccer. We're not building soccer-based NFTs on top. We're really embedded with the culture that exists there. I think when we start to reach out to the broad group that is, soccer football fans, we have to do that through their cultures. It's not just having a community that you can buy your way into. It's how do we really, level and connect with you. Right now, we're existing very much in the culture of NFTs and in the culture of blockchain, which exists by itself and is very fun. But as we know, it's a bit of a closed community at the time, right? But I think that's our method or our path to bring others in is going to be through culture.
All right, and last but not least, where can people find you guys? Where can the brands, where can we reach you?
I'm always available, kevin.wright@adidas.com. And yeah, that's me everywhere. Kev Plays Games is my @name on everything. I'm a big gamer. I'll see you online anytime.
Mine is just @A Wengroff, my last name, on all things, so just hit me up whenever. And I do encourage you to just go to ledger.com and go check out the academy if you want to learn or send your friends something to get onboarded. It's quite easy.
I'm just @Seth.
What amazing!
CTH.
What? How did you get that?
I'm old. Oh. In 2007, I just signed up for Twitter, and I was like @SETH. So.
And it was available. I love it. OGs.
Follow this man.
Yeah, follow this man. And you guys can follow me on @NFT Now. We are the #1 source of content, news, curation, analysis for NFTs. We help the community onboard and demystify what this whole world is. So, and give us a round of applause for our panel. And thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.